These 10 U.S. states are falling apart fast in 2025. Their bleeding population, their economies are sinking, crime is out of control, and the cost of living is crushing millions of people. Infrastructure is crumbling, schools and hospitals are shutting down, and entire communities are disappearing. This isn't exaggeration. These are cold facts backed by numbers, headlines, and what residents themselves are experiencing every single day. Some of these states were once strong, proud, and full of opportunity. Others have struggled for decades but are now worse off than ever before. America as a whole is still powerful, but not every part of the country is sharing in that strength. If you look closely, you'll see the collapse happening in plain sight. So today we're going straight into the top 10 states that are dying the fastest in 2025. No sugarcoating, no distractions, just the truth about what's happening on the ground. Let's begin. Number 10, Illinois is a state on life support. Once known as the beating heart of America's Midwest, with Chicago as a global city of business, culture, and innovation, Illinois is now collapsing under the weight of its own failures. The financial crisis here is massive. Illinois has one of the worst pension debts in the entire country, and it keeps growing every single year. Billions of dollars are owed, and politicians can't agree on real solutions. Instead, taxes keep going up, punishing working families and driving businesses away. Property taxes are among the highest in the nation, yet schools and public services still suffer from underfunding. Chicago, the jewel of Illinois, is in chaos. Crime has exploded, with carjackings, robberies, and shootings happening daily. Many families don't feel safe walking the streets. Businesses that once thrived downtown are closing their doors or moving to safer states. Even major corporations are quietly leaving, taking jobs and money with them. The rest of Illinois isn't doing better. Small towns and rural areas are hollowing out as young people flee to nearby states like Indiana or Wisconsin. Population decline is eating away at local economies, leaving behind abandoned houses, failing schools, and communities with no future. Illinois still has incredible assets: farmland, infrastructure, and the global power of Chicago. But the state is bleeding out faster than it can recover. Without real reform, Illinois is on track to lose even more people, businesses, and stability in the years ahead. Number 9. Alaska, known as the last frontier, is slowly breaking down. On the surface, it's one of the most beautiful states in the country, with mountains, wildlife, and endless natural wonders. But behind that beauty lies a harsh reality in 2025. Alaska is shrinking, struggling, and losing its fight to survive. The economy here is dangerously fragile. For decades, Alaska relied almost entirely on oil revenue to pay its bills. But global demand has shifted, oil production has slowed, and prices aren't enough to keep the state afloat. The once famous permanent fund dividend, money that every Alaskan used to receive, is now smaller and unreliable, a reminder of how dependent the state has become on a fading industry. Everyday life is brutally expensive. Groceries, gas, and basic supplies cost 2 to 3 times more than in the lower 48. In remote areas, food and fuel have to be flown in or shipped by boat, which makes them nearly unaffordable. Families are forced to choose between heating their homes or putting food on the table. Healthcare is another crisis. Many rural clinics are understaffed or closing, leaving entire communities without proper medical care. For some Alaskans, the nearest hospital is hundreds of miles away, and that's if the weather allows travel. Population decline is accelerating. More people are leaving than arriving, tired of the long winters, isolation, and high costs. Young people especially are fleeing to Washington or Texas, leaving behind an aging population and shrinking workforce. Alaska may look like paradise on postcards, but the reality is grim. Without diversification, investment, and real solutions, this state risks becoming unlivable for many of its own residents. Number 8, Mississippi, has long been at the bottom of national rankings, but in 2025, it feels like the state is sliding even further behind. Poverty, failing infrastructure, collapsing healthcare systems, and underfunded schools have created a crisis that touches almost every resident. Economically, Mississippi is stuck. The median household income is one of the lowest in the nation, and opportunities for upward mobility are rare. Jobs are limited, wages are stagnant, and many young people leave as soon as they can, searching for better futures in neighboring states. Healthcare is collapsing. Rural hospitals are shutting down one after another because they can't stay financially afloat. In some counties, there is no functioning hospital at all, forcing people to travel hours for basic care. Emergency services are stretched to the breaking point, and for families in poor, rural areas, medical help simply isn't available when it's needed most. Education tells the same story. Schools are underfunded, teachers are underpaid, and classrooms are overcrowded. Mississippi ranks near the bottom in test scores and graduation rates, leaving many students unprepared for the modern workforce. Infrastructure is also falling apart. Roads, bridges, and even water systems are outdated, and small towns don't have the money to fix them. The Jackson water crisis highlighted just how fragile the state's systems are, and similar problems exist across Mississippi. The culture, history, and community spirit of Mississippi are strong, but without serious investment, this state risks being left behind entirely. Number 7, New Mexico, has always struggled with poverty, but in 2025, the cracks are even more visible. The state has one of the highest crime rates in the nation, especially in Albuquerque, where violent crime has exploded. The economy is stagnant. Outside of government jobs and tourism, there aren't enough opportunities to keep people employed. Young workers are leaving for Texas, Colorado, and Arizona, looking for better pay and safer neighborhoods. Education and healthcare lag far behind the national average. Many schools lack proper funding, and rural areas are starved of resources. Teachers are leaving the profession, and hospitals struggle to recruit staff. Drug addiction and homelessness are also rising, especially in the bigger cities. While New Mexico has stunning natural landscapes and a unique cultural identity, daily life for many residents is about survival, not thriving. Poverty rates are some of the highest in the country, and entire communities are trapped in cycles that seem impossible to break. Tourism and film production bring money, but it's not enough to lift the state as a whole. Without structural changes, New Mexico risks losing its future generations to states that offer hope and opportunity. Number 6, West Virginia is collapsing under the weight of its past. Once powered by coal, the state is now left with shuttered mines, ghost towns, and little to replace the lost jobs. The opioid crisis hit West Virginia harder than almost anywhere else. Entire communities have been hollowed out by addiction, leaving behind broken families and struggling towns. Healthcare systems are overwhelmed, and younger generations are leaving to escape the cycle. The population is aging rapidly, and with fewer young people to replace them, whole counties are shrinking. Infrastructure, from bridges to broadband, is outdated and underfunded. For many rural areas, basic services like high-speed internet or reliable healthcare simply don't exist. Tourism has potential, with beautiful mountains and outdoor recreation, but poverty, poor infrastructure, and lack of investment make it hard to build a sustainable economy on tourism alone. West Virginia's challenges are deeply rooted and not easy to fix. Without massive outside investment in a complete economic overhaul, the state risks becoming a shell of what it once was, remembered only for the coal that built it and the crises that broke it. Number 5, California is a paradox. It's home to Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and some of the richest people on the planet, but at the same time, it's falling apart faster than almost any other state. The cost of living is completely out of control. Housing prices are so high that even middle-class families are being pushed into poverty. Homelessness is exploding in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, with entire tent cities lining the streets. Crime is rising in urban areas, and businesses are fleeing California's heavy regulations and high taxes. People are moving to states like Texas, Nevada, and Arizona in record numbers, fed up with the impossible costs and declining quality of life. On top of that, California faces natural disasters year after year. Wildfires destroy entire neighborhoods, droughts threaten the water supply, and earthquakes remain a constant threat. The state's infrastructure is old and failing, and traffic congestion wastes billions of hours of productivity every year. California still has wealth, innovation, and influence, but for everyday residents, 2025 feels like a breaking point. Unless massive changes are made, California risks becoming a state only the ultra-rich can afford to live in. Number 4. Louisiana has always been vulnerable to natural disasters, but in 2025 the situation feels worse than ever. Hurricanes, flooding, and coastal erosion are destroying communities year after year. Poverty is widespread, and Louisiana consistently ranks near the bottom in income, education, and healthcare. Infrastructure is weak, and many areas still haven't fully recovered from past storms. The risk of future disasters makes it harder to attract new businesses or investment. New Orleans is still a cultural gem, but crime, poverty, and high costs are pushing people out. Rural areas are shrinking, with limited job opportunities and declining populations. The oil industry, once a major employer, is facing challenges as energy shifts away from fossil fuels. Without a clear plan for the future, Louisiana's economy is at risk of falling even further behind. Louisiana's culture and resilience are unmatched, but resilience alone isn't enough. Without investment in infrastructure, education, and disaster preparedness, the state risks losing even more of its people and its future. Number 3. Michigan. Once the proud home of America's auto industry, is still struggling to recover from decades of decline. Detroit has seen some revival, but crime, poverty, and abandoned neighborhoods still define much of the city. Population decline continues as families move out searching for safer and more stable communities. Outside of Detroit, many smaller towns face the same challenges. Factories closed years ago, and nothing has replaced them. Infrastructure is old and breaking down, and Michigan has some of the worst roads in the country. The Flint water crisis remains a symbol of government failure. Years later, trust hasn't been restored, and other communities fear the same could happen to them. Michigan has natural beauty and strong universities, but that's not enough to stop the long-term decline. Without major investment and a shift away from dependence on manufacturing, Michigan risks being stuck in permanent economic stagnation. Number 2, Oregon, once known for its progressive spirit and natural beauty, is facing serious problems in 2025. Portland has become a symbol of decline, with rising homelessness, crime, and political divisions. Businesses are closing, residents are moving out, and the once thriving city is struggling to maintain order and safety. Housing costs are skyrocketing, pushing families out of urban areas. At the same time, rural Oregon is struggling with poverty, job shortages, and underfunded schools. The gap between urban and rural is wider than ever before. Drug addiction and homelessness are widespread. Public safety concerns have driven people out of downtown Portland, and tourism has suffered as a result. Oregon's natural beauty and outdoor lifestyle remain strong, but everyday life is harder for many residents. Unless leadership finds real solutions to homelessness, affordability, and crime, the state risks losing the very people who made it vibrant. Number 1. Hawaii. May look like paradise on the surface, but in 2025, it tops the list of states falling apart. The cost of living is the highest in the nation. Food, housing, and basic goods are unaffordable for most locals because everything has to be shipped from the mainland. Families that have lived there for generations are leaving because they simply can't afford to stay. Homelessness is a massive crisis. Even working people are forced to live in cars or on the beach because housing prices are out of reach. Tourism keeps the economy alive, but it doesn't pay enough to cover the cost of living for workers. Healthcare is stretched thin, infrastructure is aging, and the state is heavily dependent on imports for survival. Any disruption, from shipping problems to natural disasters, threatens the entire economy. Hawaii's beauty is unmatched, but for residents, paradise feels like a trap. More and more are fleeing to the mainland, especially to Nevada, Texas, and California. If nothing changes, Hawaii could become a place only tourists and the ultra-rich can afford, while locals are pushed out of their own homeland.